Welcome to the Get Unbusy podcast. I'm your host, Kate Philpott, and this podcast is all about throwing your busy work out the window. You deserve to stay locked in on the parts of your business that light a fire under your hoo-ha, all right? The passion-driven freedom lifestyle, not being glued to your laptop every waking minute of the day. It's time to build a business that works for you, not one that works you into the ground. So, let's get unbusy, shall we? Hello and welcome back to the Get Unbusy podcast. I'm your host, Kate Philpott, and we've got quite the juicy episode for you today because I am joined by the one and only Kimba Cooper Martin. Before I bring Kimba on, I'm going to give you some background on her because this topic is just so perfect here. She's a successful, innovative and creative entrepreneur based in Bristol. Kimba's been using gamification in her personal and business life to improve results and meet her own goals for as long as she can remember. And one of my favorite facts here is, as well as running a flourishing business, in her spare time, she's a sponsored hula hooper, I know, and has used gamification to outsell the other sponsees by 10x, which is just unbelievable. Gamification has enabled Kimba to improve all aspects of her business, leading to more sales, greater results for everyone involved, and whether it's engagement on social media posts or an increase in the number of people completing her courses or showing up to live online events, that better participant retention in her challenges and memberships, or even just getting higher quality testimonials, pretty much everything she's gamified has seen a marked improvement. So Kimba has gamified other areas of her personal life too to help her fit in extra reading and exercise and learning new skills, all while having fun. So that's what I'm all about. And she now helps other businesses to apply gamification techniques to boost results for themselves and their customers and members. So obviously my niche is productivity, and I'm all about anything that can help people follow through on what they say they want to do. So I cannot wait to have this conversation. And with that, I'm going to welcome our lovely guest on. So hey, Kimba, it's so great to have you here. How are you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, it's a really good matchup, actually, gamification and productivity. So I'm really excited to have a conversation with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the thing. Okay, for those who haven't come across the concept before, sounds like a really fun word, but what actually is gamification?
Everyone will have come across this, even if they don't know. The term has been around since around 2002, and the actual use of it, even without a term, has been around forever. So essentially, we've all played games of some sort, you know, from conkers to cricket, from hopscotch to tiddlywinks. We played a board game or a video game and been unable to stop playing because we want to get to that next level, or we want to beat our opponent. Even when it's frustrating or difficult, there are things built into games that make you motivated to want to continue. And so gamification takes those elements, tools and techniques out of the game world and puts them into non-game settings. So some of the examples there that you talked about that we gamify are things like memberships and online courses and online launches, social media posts, but people use gamification in business all over the place. So sales teams will gamify themselves to reach more sales. You can gamify yourself to achieve things. You know, when I was first moving into the gamification world, I wanted to do a bunch of research and read a bunch of books. Unfortunately, a lot of gamification books are full of really technical jargon, either very gamer-based jargon, which is not something that, you know, I've played a lot of games, but I'm not a huge video game gamer, or they're really academic. So it's like, right, I'm going to have to really motivate myself to do this. So I had to gamify myself to do it. So essentially, it's a motivational tool, and it can be used to help you get better results, to be more efficient, and to motivate people to do things that they might not be intrinsically motivated to do.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? Because one of those days we just kind of grew up and suddenly there was just no play, and we have to do all these adult things, and typically they tend to be a little dull. So I love that we can just bring this in. And I'd also love to know a little bit about how, like, the background of how you even got into this. Like, it's such a specific niche. Like, is there an origin story there? How did this come about?
It comes through in lots of different kind of ways in my life. And, you know, as you mentioned, I've always kind of naturally done it, but I didn't realize I had. So I remember hearing about gamification in a marketing conference over a decade ago now, and I hadn't really thought about it since then. And I continued, you know, moved on, ran an agency. And one day, my husband said that I never exercise unless I set myself a challenge. And I was like, no, I don't. What is he talking about? I mean, he wasn't my husband at the time. And I was like, no, you know, I don't know what you're talking about. And I thought about it. It was like, he's right. Like, I'll only do exercise if I'm training for a half marathon, or if I'm doing 30 days of push-ups, or, you know, if I've gamified myself to do it. And it's something that, you know, you mentioned the hula hooping thing. So when I was still employed, I started doing hula hooping, and I became sponsored by a hula hoop company in America. I did like an online challenge, and I found that I was naturally using gamification to make sales. I didn't know it was that called that at the time. So I would do things like I would play games online and tag other people in to play the games with me. Things like there's a game that we play to train called Stop, Drop and Spin. And essentially, because training is a pain in the bum, you know, training any physical activity is hard, but circus stuff is hard. Like, you're trying to get something and you do it over and over again and you hit yourself in the face with a hula hoop, and it's just hard. So we play games to motivate ourselves, and one of them's called Stop, Drop and Spin. And what it is you're tagged by somebody to play. You stop where you are, you drop what you're doing, you spin the hoop, and you video yourself doing it, essentially, and then you tag 2 other people to play with you. And the nature of that is that it's exponential growth, because everybody tags 2 more people. And so what I was doing is I was going into the huge hula hoop communities on those days and saying, I'm going to play Stop, Drop and Spin tonight. If you want to play, tag, you know, put your handle in the comments below, but also follow me, because I wanted some followers. And then that evening I would tag those people, and I was using it as a way to interact with other hula hoopers and also to train. But I always got a massive increase in followers on those nights, and I would always make sales as well. And even if people weren't buying then, they might follow me and then buy the hoops later, because they'd be asking things like, oh my gosh, I've not seen a hoop that's colour before, or what size is the hoop, or what is it made of? And I would make sales through that nature. So little things like that, I've like naturally always done it without thinking about it. And so I realised this, and at the time I was teaching Instagram. I used to do that as part of my agency, and I was running online challenges, and I was running a 5-day challenge that ran and moved on to an online course. I had an upsell rather. So a challenge in and of itself is gamification because of the tasks and the nature of it. You'll have seen these online challenges, you know, you go in a Facebook group and everybody does tasks every day. But I was adding, I thought, do you know what, I'm going to test out this gamification thing properly. And I added a bunch of gamification techniques. I added in different techniques for different personalities to attract people to watch the lives, to do all these things. And we had ridiculous increases in results. We increased the number of people taking part, the number of people watching the lives, but also we increase in conversion rate. Now, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was an increase of like 1.2% or 1.6% in conversion rate, which doesn't sound like a lot. But when your challenges have 1,600 people in them and the course is 1,600 quid, that's quite a big increase. And it worked out at something like, I don't know, over 100%. So it was like, I think it was 1.1% to 2.6% or something. So it's over 100% increase. So if you think about your own conversion rates, if you could improve your conversion rates by over 100% by adding a bit of gamification, that would be incredible. And at that point I was like, right, okay, you know, Instagram's not my bag anymore. You know, I was making a decent amount of money doing it, and I was getting some really great results from my customers, but I just didn't want to do it anymore. And one of the advantages of working for yourself is you don't have to do things that you don't like. If you can change, you should change. You know, that's the whole thing. If you want to do things you don't like, go work for someone else. So I thought, right, well, you know, I'm already using gamification successfully. I'm doing it in my personal life and in my business. I've got proven results, and I can start to help other people with this. And so I pivoted, when was that? A few years ago now, and started helping people with the things that I had experience in. So specifically online memberships, online courses, online launches, so things like challenges and affiliate launches, things like that. And I used to run a social media agency, so we do things like gamified social media templates as well to encourage people to engage more with your content. Yeah, so it's a bit of a multi-pronged way that I've come to be in this situation. But, it's great because not many people know that they know about it until I start talking about it. And they're like, oh, yeah. And then they give me a million and one examples. And it's a super useful tool to motivate people.
Yeah, for sure. And that was something that I was thinking about before we hopped on here is we are all using it, but not intentionally. We're all benefiting from it in some way in our lives, whether that's, regularly or just back in the day. But like, imagine bringing that awareness to it to be able to use it to your benefit. Because like, I also have a background in psychology, so I'm like, oh yeah, let's use our own psychology like to our benefit. That's just music to my ears. Yeah, so I love that, and it is so interwoven. Just like as you were speaking there, it's like, wow, okay, so you would gamify the follow through for somebody who's like trying to achieve something, and then for them to gamify things for their audience, but which is just like how it's all interwoven. So what would be some myths around gamification?
One of the biggest things that I hear when I talk about gamification is like, oh, that must be great for kids, or that would be great in schools. But there's this assumption that it's not good for adults. And what I would say to that is that games have been around forever. So a game that is quite, I suppose, was prolific for a long time would be Space Invaders, that came out in 1978. Which means that there's a whole generation of boomers that grew up playing that game. And you might think, oh, that generation, they don't play games. But you think about games across time, think of some games that have been around forever. Checkers, bingo, lotteries. People have been playing games for thousands and thousands of years, and it's not really an age-based thing. It's not really necessarily even a gender-based thing. There's an assumption that gamers are men or teenage boys. But if you look at demographics on the whole, if you look at different types of games, you'll find different types of demographics. So mobile games are probably predominantly played by women, or generally probably in their 30s and 40s, depending on obviously location and things like that. And obviously that's a massive generalisation. But people might think, well, I'm not a gamer, but if I say to you, do you play Wordle or do you play Farmville? They might be like, oh, I do play those games. So you are a gamer of some sort. I think that it's a huge misconception that only a certain gender or any certain age plays games. Also think about like older people. When you think what games do older people play, you get, older people playing bingo or whist or bowls. Games are something that are part of who we are in a way, like storytelling is. They're part of community and how we educate and part of how we socialise. And so that is a huge myth around gamification, is that it can only be used for and it can only be appreciated by people of a certain demographic, and that's just not true. I mean, there's a few other myths as well, like gamification must look like a computer game. So people are like, oh, I couldn't afford to do gamification, I can't afford to do a big 3D interactive design, or I haven't got the time to put together a board game. But it doesn't have to be like that. It can be very, very simple changes. It's essentially just stealing some sort of element or something like that from the game world and putting it into a non-game setting. So, for example, polls. You see polls everywhere. You see polls now, they're on stories, they're in email providers, they're everywhere. And they're designed to help you to do market research, but they can be fun. And when you think of polls, you're probably thinking, okay, that they're not that fun. But let's think of an Instagram story example where people do a this or that. Do you prefer red nails or pink nails? I'm just saying that because I've got pink nails on. I was looking at my nails. But that's a fun way to interact with a brand that's going to increase engagement. It's going to, let's say that the brand that was doing that was selling nail varnish. They're going to know where to put money into developing new products. And they're going to make more sales off the back of that. So it's a bit of fun. It's a bit silly. But it's not a big computer game, but it is gamification.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like a big thing. It can be very simple.
I love a good poll. I can't scroll past a poll. Like I need to be involved here. Even if it has nothing to do with me.
It's become so popular on Instagram now that it's not just in stories anymore. They've put it into the bottoms of posts as well. So you know, I've seen that happening more and more recently as people adding it because it works.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but it does work. Yeah. And another one is, I hear this a lot as well, is like, oh, gamification, isn't that just manipulating people into doing stuff that they don't want to do? And the reason they think that is because of exactly what you said earlier about it being about psychology and understanding different personality types and, you know, using tools and techniques to encourage them to do things. Now, I would say that any tool can be used for good or for bad. And actually, let's talk about a really topical example. And I mean, this might not date very well. And it's an interesting ethical question about gamification. But very recently, the BBC shared an article saying that Ukraine is now gamifying their war tactics. So they have set up a system whereby they review what's happened, and they will award points based on things like damage, kills, things like that.
Oof.
And they're using it to motivate their employees on the ground to do a better job. Now, you know, my personal views on whether or not gamification should be used in war aside, because, you know, that it's a big topic and, you know, but it's a very good example of gamification being used to motivate people.
Yeah.
And whether or not that is for good or for evil is dependent on your perspective on war on the whole and which side of that war you are on. But it is working, and that's why they continue to do it. And it's a very interesting example because it's, you know, people say you shouldn't play war video games, you know, kids shouldn't play them because it's encouraging certain behaviours, and it's this whole cyclical thing of, is it art replicating life or life replicating art? And now their war strategists are taking things from the game world and putting them into real life situations to get better results.
Right.
And the thing is, you can use it for those kind of scenarios, but you could also use it, like there's an example of, so there is an online research company, I forget the name of it, but the website's called Fold It, and they play a game. Anyone can play. You can go on it right now if you want to. And you essentially fold proteins is the idea behind it. And it's such an interesting concept because it's scientific research to help look into things like different ways of solving things like HIV and AIDS and things like that. So they're looking at how you can match up lots of different proteins. I'm not 100% sure of the science clearly, but to get results that are positive. And they found that by getting just normal humans to play this game, which seems really frivolous on a computer, that they were solving problems that medical researchers had been struggling to solve for years.
Wow.
So, you know, is it manipulating people to do things that they don't want to do? Is it a manipulative tool? It depends on your perspective and what you're using it for. Anything can be used for good. Anything can be used for evil. And I think what I teach is very much ethical gamification, which is making sure there's consent. So making sure that, you know, people want to take part and that they have a choice to opt out if they want to. And also always doing it in their best interest. I talk about the win-win all the time. I always say make sure that when you're designing any gamification, you're doing it in such a way that the business wins. So you get out of it something in terms of your business objectives, but also making sure that you really think about what your players are going to get out of it. Because then you're going to get the best results. Like, what do they actually want to achieve out of your course? What do they actually want to achieve out of your membership? Not just what you think they want to. Some people will be joining your online course, your online membership, following you on social media because they want to be in the same circles as you, or they want to network with other people who can afford your courses. They might not necessarily be there to learn the thing that you're teaching. So how can you gamify what you're offering in a way that will allow all of those different types of personalities that are there for different reasons to get what they need out of it, as well as achieving what you want to achieve? Always look at the win-win. So that's a big one.
Yeah.
And it's quite a new example, the Ukraine war tactics thing.
Yeah. Before you said that example, like part of me was like, you could open up like a whole rabbit hole here saying, okay, but even if it is manipulating behavior in a certain way, like, is manipulation a bad thing? But then, of course, like, you going on to say, like, oh, making it a win-win, making sure there's consent, like, that makes so much sense. So it kind of kind of narrows it into that box where it's like, okay, but, like, we're not out here harming people. But yeah, no, that's such an interesting one. I think I'm going to be thinking about this for the rest of the day, to be honest.
Yeah, when I first heard about it, I was like, I'm not sure where I sit on this at all. I'm really struggling with it as somebody who, consults on gamification. That's a tough one, but there's lots of examples of brands. You can just Google it. There's plenty of examples of brands using gamification or any tool in a way that they shouldn't be doing, and also, oftentimes they don't necessarily know that they're doing so. So there's examples of, I'm not going to say the names of brands, but you'd be able to Google it probably, brands using gamification to get their workers to do laundry quicker. And what happens is their staff end up ill, their staff end up, not being able to do their jobs properly. It ends up messing with their mental health, all these kind of things, because, the systems that they put in place aren't really also thinking about the outcomes for the staff. There's lots and lots of examples of businesses doing it and not necessarily considering the win-win. And I think that's when it can become manipulative. And I think that's what you really need to think about. But as long as you're thinking about the win-win, you can do loads of things. You can make things fun for lots and lots of people. Yeah. And you can help everyone get better results, which, who doesn't want that?
Hell yeah. Which leads me very beautifully into what I was going to ask you next, which is, like, have you got some examples that you can share with us of gamification when it comes to business?
Loads. So let's start really small. When we were little, you might remember you'd get on the back of a cereal box, you get like little coupons that you could cut out and post in if you collected enough of them to get a toy. So that's a company blatantly gamifying you to buy more of their cereal. Now the win-win comes in here because the kid gets the toy. Unfortunately, the parent isn't winning in this scenario because they have to spend a bit more money, but the company makes more sales and the kid gets a toy. So there's a win-win in that. Another example that I like to give all the time is kind of fitness apps. So if you're wearing a smartwatch at the moment, they are fully gamified, constantly trying to treat you like a little Tamagotchi. That's what the influencers say. A good example of this, and one that is used a lot, is the Nike or Nike Plus app. And so what they do is they are gamifying their customers to get fit. And it works out well for them because somebody who is running 5 times a week is going to need new trainers a lot quicker than somebody who isn't running at all.
Good point.
So they are making some money and they get a lot of data from these, a huge amount of data in these apps, which they can use to improve their marketing and improve their sales. So they are getting 2 massive wins from gamifying their app, like creating these gamified apps. And of course there is a win for the customer because they get to get fit, which is what they want out of it as well. So that's an example. And like pretty much all fitness apps, I'm not going to say all, but most of them are gamified now. They'll have things like little challenges that you can complete, or collaborate with your friends, or badges and leaderboards and all this kind of things. They're all put in there with business objectives in mind as well as the objective of the customer. Another really good example, we all know Netflix. So Netflix is really good at personalization, and personalization is a game technique. In the game world, think, if you're in a video game, you can personalize your avatar, you can choose which direction you go in next, and what happens to you next in a game will be based on what you've done so far and what you've chosen so far. And that's exactly what Netflix does. It's basically a choose your own adventure in the form of video watching. The algorithm is set up to give you more of what you want because they want you to stay as a loyal customer, because they want you to keep giving them money. They want you to be happy. Spotify does it as well. Exactly the same thing. Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many different examples of this. It's the kind of thing that once you start seeing it, you will see it everywhere. And it's one of my favourite things when people message me and say, oh, Kimba, after your talk, I saw this on a billboard. I saw somebody, they had a competition on a billboard in the middle of the street. Like I've seen Cadbury's do that, don't they? Where they have I think it's QR code based, but they'll have you can send a chocolate bar to somebody you don't know, which is relatedness, which is a gamification technique, and novelty and mystery and all of these lovely gamification techniques. But it's everywhere. Like I'm sure you've seen gamification everywhere in your life too.
Girl, I am on the Cadbury's email list. Like I've been in those Christmas polls, what's the mystery flavor? To be honest, I actually don't think I have bought any of them, but I've really wanted to. I've been I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I am an absolute sucker for all of these examples that you've given.
A mystery, anything. If anyone brings out a mystery box, I'm like, oh, I'm tempted. I'm so tempted.
Yeah, and it was guess the flavor, because it's weird, you kind of don't know what a flavor is unless you're told what the flavor is. So guess the flavor and you're in with a chance to win a certain amount of money or something. I was like, yeah, that's so fun. That's so interesting. So how would a business owner, an online business owner, use this within their community if there's a lack of engagement and energy, how could they use this to kind of turn that around?
So I think I'd start with something that you might not think is gamification but is, which is feedback. So in games, you get feedback constantly. Your health goes down if you take a bad action. You get feedback maybe, in your this in my hands that I'm miming is a games controller vibrating. That's what I'm doing right now. You'll get feedback if you take a bad action, right?
Oh, I get you, yeah.
You get feedback all the time in lots of different ways, through points or whether you've won or lost or whatever. And so the first thing I would say to do is just get feedback. It sounds so obvious, but survey your customers, survey your members if you've got a community, and find out, why did they join? Why are they still here? What do they love? What don't they love? What are they, where are they in their journey of whatever you're trying to help them with? And what can you help them with next? But also find out things like, do they like competition? Not everyone likes competition. Some people prefer to be collaborative. Some people don't want to show up to lives. It might find that, having done the survey, that actually you don't need to gamify just yet. You actually need to do half as many sessions as you're currently running, and you need to send out some more reminder emails. Sometimes with communities, people, and this is me doing myself out of some money here, people will say, Kimba, come and gamify my community. And I'll be like, have you tried all of these things first? Because you might not need to gamify just yet. So feedback is so important. And I think it doesn't just have to be in the form of a survey. You could do it in group consultations. You could get people onto a Zoom call together, or how I've done recently in one of my communities is I just booked them all onto 20-minute one-to-one calls with me, and I just had a chat with them. I found out where they're all at, and it was the most useful for them, as well as, they felt appreciated because they had time with the person running the community, and also I was able to give them some advice on where they were at that time. But also it meant that I knew, these things that I'm offering that I think are great, some of them nobody cares about, and some of them are really great, and some of them they'd like more of. Do you need to figure out what's working and what's not before you can gamify? It's one of the worst things. Somebody will say, I've got no engagement, kind of gamify. And I'm like, oh, if you've got no engagement, there might be something else happening. And if we gamify and it doesn't work, you're going to assume the gamification is the problem. Any underlying stuff first before we gamify. So if you know that quite a high percentage of the people who are taking part are getting something out of it, but you just like to boost that, that's when you should bring gamification in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's really, really important. I think it's a step that a lot of people either miss or don't want to do or are afraid to do. But I've never, ever, ever done a survey for one of my customers and not had just endless glowing testimonials. I mean, there'll be things that they don't like, but they will always be super complimentary of the person running the community, because that's why they're there.
Yeah, and that's the thing, if it's feeling a little quieter than you'd like, you can absolutely let that get to your head. And my first thought when you said the word feedback was ooh, scary, because especially if it is feeling quieter, and it's oh, why is it feeling quieter? Oh no, now they're actually going to tell me, and it's assuming the worst. So I'm just imagining that some people could kind of see it in that way, and that's why that wouldn't be their first go-to. It's like, okay, I'm going to do everything but get feedback. You know what I mean?
You have to get feedback. Because the other thing is that you might find that the reason that nobody's coming into your lives at the moment is because, you know, Hannah's got a sick mum and she's having to care for her at the moment. Jenny's got 3 kids and all of a sudden her partner is working away a lot, so she can't get to calls. This other person is nervous to come on calls and prefers to watch on the replay. And actually, at the moment, there's nothing wrong with what you're offering and nobody has any issue and they all love it, that they just can't be there for various reasons. Mm-hmm. Feedback, you know, if you're worried about what you'll read, then it might be better to do it on a call, because then there's no like temptation to not read it.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those, you know, rip the plaster off situation. You go in. Also, people are much nicer to your face. So, you know, if you're worried from that perspective, I have to say, if you are worried about it, I have never had anyone on any of these feedback forms say anything that was personal, that was super negative. It would always be a thing like, oh, I would love to come on all these calls, but I can't because of X, Y, and Z. Or, you know, I really wanted to complete this, but I fell off the bandwagon. Can you help me get back on it? And it's never personal. So if you're worried, that's almost even reason more to do it.
Ooh.
Rather than trying to find a million other things.
Yeah.
And a million other reasons to try and stick a plaster on it. Why don't you just find the actual thing that's wrong? Start with that, and then when the ball is rolling and things are getting a bit better, that's when you can add gamification on top to make it pop. Mm-hmm. Especially because, and I think this is something that people forget, is if you've been running a community for a long time, doing the same things, humans are just animals of, like, there's this thing called habituation, right? Where, and it's a psychological term, where naturally our brains are designed for pattern recognition. You know, from a survival perspective, you will look for novel things and your brain really pays attention to them because they're new and they're exciting. And then when it realizes that they're not a threat, it stops paying attention to them. So if you're running your community, you're doing the same things in the same way, and all of a sudden people are stopping paying attention so much, probably time it to put something new in, to add some novelty, to make their brains wake up and go, oh, okay, you know, maybe change channel. So maybe instead of sending the reminders through email, send them through Messenger or a WhatsApp group, or change it from an email with writing to an email with a video in it that's personalized. You know, how can you change things up to wake their brain back up so that they're not zoned out? Because that happens to everybody. It's a completely normal part of who we are.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally built into us. So add novelty. Novelty is a huge thing in gamification. Think about the games world. Any game that you do, not every round won't be the same. You know, the next level will have new challenges and will have something different to try. You need to add that into, you know, especially if you're doing bigger gamification projects, you need to be adding novelty. If people are used to seeing you post the same stuff on social media all the time and you suddenly change it up, they're going to pay attention because all of a sudden it's different.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, it's so true. And like, 'cause I'm just thinking back to like the times where I might have had a spike in engagement, or, you know, things have suddenly just started being more like, whoa, we're doing things. And it is 9 times out of 10, it's been for that reason. I might not have realized at the time that was what was leading to that, but that makes so much sense. And I feel like, yeah, I really feel like I'm gonna take a notebook and just like brain dump all of my thoughts out after this, of like, just, you know, that like I take some time to process things, so I'm gonna probably for the next 24 hours maybe feel like just ideas like popping up from this conversation. So I'm so good. What I'd love as well is if we can speak about the part of gamification that's like, how do you motivate yourself to do something?
Again, it starts with understanding, like, you know, when I was saying about feedback in the community, that's about understanding who your players are and what kinds of people you've got in your membership, or your community, so that you can gamify to them. When you're gamifying yourself, you need to understand yourself. Not everyone likes the same things, okay? Not everyone is motivated by the same things. The simplest analogy is carrot or stick. But when people say to me, can you make X, Y, and Z fun? Can you make this course fun for me? Can you make this membership more fun? I'd be like, well, what's fun for me might not be fun for you. Like, I like hula hooping. Some of you might have listened to the hula hooping example and be like, what is wrong with this woman? I cannot, like, what is hula hooping? You know, like, people don't like the same things, and that's okay. But that means you have to really understand yourself if you're going to motivate yourself. And you need to understand, if you're not intrinsically motivated to do something, are you going to be more motivated by giving yourself a reward, or are you the kind of person that a reward's not going to work for? Do you need a punishment? Do you need somebody else to be there to encourage you to do that thing? There are lots of... So there are player types that I talk about, and these were created by a gent called Richard Bartle in the 80s, and they were designed to talk about video games, but often gamification professionals use these examples. So there's 4 different player types. There are more like subcategories, but the 4 ones are achiever. So an achiever, that is what I am, is somebody who is motivated by, like, just by achieving itself. Like, I want to do something because I know that by completing it, I will feel good. So you can reward achievers and encourage them to do more by doing things like giving them a star or a sticker or a title. You know, like, you see them on Facebook groups, don't you, where it's like, you are the most engaged member of the week or whatever. Achievers love that. Absolutely love it. What I'll do for a sticker is ridiculous. Then you've got socializers. So these people are more motivated by doing things to do with other people. So they are motivated by networking or helping other people. Then you have explorers. So these are the people who they're your grammar nerds. They're the ones who will spot all the mistakes in your course materials. They will also be the ones that appreciate an Easter egg. So that, in terms of games, is something that's hidden that other people might not know about. It's fun to hide little things for those kinds of personalities. They like VIP experiences, hidden things, those kind of exclusive stuff. And then the final one sounds bad, but it's not bad. It's called killers. So these are the people that... They like the achievers, they like a leaderboard, they like to achieve, but they like for different reasons. So achievers like to achieve because they want to achieve for themselves. Killers want to achieve so that nobody else can. Okay, so they want to be at the top of the leaderboard because they want to be there. They want to be at the top because they don't want anyone else to be at the top. They are motivated by similar things to achievers in a lot of ways, actually. So quite, you can build things for achievers and it'll work for killers. So you need to work out, now everyone can be a mix of these things, but you need to work out what's going to motivate me. So for me, I'm an achiever. So if I can make myself a paper tracker where I can tick things off every day and give myself a star or a trip to the cinema at the end, I'm going to do that all day long. Very simple, doesn't have to be complicated. But for some people, that's not going to work. So they might say, well, I want to train for this marathon, but I can't get myself out the blooming door. I'm a socializer. Okay, so I need to go and join a running group, or I need to find a running partner, and I need to do it in a way, or I need to find someone else who wants to train but isn't getting their bum out the door, and then I can help them because that will motivate me. Or explorers, think about how can I. So they want. Let's have a think about what an explorer might like. So an explorer, if they're also trying to train for a marathon and they're not getting themselves out the door, they might allow themselves to go to a 4-star restaurant that they wouldn't have gone to previously. I don't know, something like that. You have to think, what's going to motivate me? Also, are you going to get other people to help you with this? So one of my work acquaintances once said to me, yeah, I could say if I do this, I'll give myself a chocolate bar, but I could just have a chocolate bar. I'm an adult. Like, what's going to stop me from having a chocolate bar? Yeah. Fair, like totally fair. So what you need to do is you need to give your reward or your punishment to somebody else. And then they will only give it to you if you achieve that thing.
Oh, yeah.
You really need to understand yourself. And I mean, there's loads of apps that do all of this stuff. I think some of them work really well and you'd need to try a few depending on what it is that you're trying to achieve. There's loads of self-care apps and there's lots of apps for different purposes. So you need to find the one that is designed, if you want to drink more water, there's water apps, there's apps for everything. But again, there's that novelty risk in that after a little while of using that app, you're like, well, I've been doing this for a while now, you kind of get bored of it. So you will need to create novelty for yourself to continue to motivate yourself to do that thing. There is something to be said for only motivating yourself through gamification to a point. And once you're in the habit of doing it, stopping the gamification, because once you start to achieve that thing and you're doing it regularly and it's just part of your day-to-day life, then it becomes intrinsically motivating and you don't need to keep gamifying it. You know, there are some apps that over gamify and then, you know, the fun wears off.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, does it kind of wear off on your motivation then over time?
Yeah, it can do.
Yeah.
But that's why you need to understand what motivates you. And you'll know what motivates you because something will have worked at some point in the past. So you need to figure out what motivates you. You need to build your plan based on that and then, add novelty in. So, you know, you'll change the plan once a month or something. Again, that will vary depending on the person. If you're the kind of person that gets bored very easily, maybe you'll need to change the plan once a week, you know. And I would also say, don't motivate yourself to do something that you already like doing. Because that won't work.
Yeah,
it won't. The analogy that I often give is if somebody said, if you eat chocolate every day for the next 30 days, I'll give you £1,000. Of course I'd do it. And then after the 30 days, they'd give me the £1,000 and they'd be like, right, okay, you're gonna continue to eat chocolate every day. Even though I really like eating chocolate, I would stop because there's no reward now because they've taken that away. So don't use gamification to motivate yourself to do things you're already motivated to do.
Yeah.
Because that will remove it. But it works really, really well for things that you're not motivated to do. Like, I don't know, cleaning the car.
Yeah, sometimes I like to just, if I'm like, oof, the place is a little messy right now, I'll set like a 10-minute timer and be like, what, like, as much as possible in this 10 minutes because I can't be arsed to do any more than 10 minutes. So just like go and then, but then it's funny because then sometimes after the 10 minutes, I'm like, well, I'm in the flow now, so I kind of just could keep going.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant example. A countdown timer is gamification. Countdown timers are in loads of video games. It's a very, very good, really good example. And lots of people use that specifically for tidying up. It's like, I can't bother to fold my clothes. 10-minute timer, let's get on with it.
Yeah.
It really works for some people.
Yeah. Well, I could actually have this conversation for so long, but I feel like this is a great place to leave off as well because I feel like there's a lot to absorb here and we've kind of left it of like, okay, and what would motivate you? Like, what is it for the listeners out there? Like, just looking back on what has actually motivated you in the past and like gathering the data from all of those little things so that you can use it to your benefit moving forward. Like, this is just so juicy. So thank you so much, Kimba. So you are one of our fantastic speakers at the Now That's a Membership Summit that's taking place in September. So cannot wait to have you for that. But in the meantime, where can people find out more about you and what you do?
We've talked a lot about memberships today, so I think maybe it would be useful to talk about a freebie that people can have about membership. So I've got one that is 7 big mistakes businesses make when gamifying their memberships and what to do instead. We've just talked about understanding who you are and what you like. With this particular freebie, you can either have it as a podcast, as a video series, as a PDF, or as an email series. So you get to choose what would work the best for you. It's an interesting one, and I think that your people might find it useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. I love that you get to like choose your own way, because I noticed that when I joined your Facebook group, I think it was last year, that you had this thing. It was like, oh, are you more of an audio person? Then this would suit best. And I was like, oh, the novelty that I got from being able to choose, like, rather than just having something given to me. So thank you for that. Kimba, thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely unbelievable having you on here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been lots of fun. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everyone. All right, gorgeous. That's a wrap on today's episode of the Get Unbusy podcast. If you got some juicy golden nuggets from this episode, I want to hear about it. So take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, and tag me at More to Life Kate, because your girl wants to know. And remember, you're an absolute powerhouse. You can create the life you've been dreaming of, and I can't wait to see you pop off. Chat to you soon. Bye.